Hi, I'm James Kennedy, part of the outreach team here at Leeds Beckett University, and this session is all about your personal statement. So a few things that we're going to run through today. We're going to run through why we even ask you to write this in the first place, the purpose of it, how it's used when it lands on the desk for our admissions tutors and our academics. We're going to give you a few tips on how to present it, how to format it, things to include, things not to include, and then we'll finish off with a few top tips as well. In the years of experience I've got in this, hopefully, no matter how far along you are in your statement, there's going to be a few things to take away. So as we are in September, we'll look at the timeline for your applications. For those of you that might be looking at the earlier application deadline for Oxford, Cambridge, Medicine, Dentistry or Veterinary Science, really you're looking at having this handed in the next few days or weeks to your tutor to have it all sent off in time for the UCAS deadline of October 15th. For anyone else who's now in their second year of college, year 13, or generally just looking at joining university in September 2021, your UCAS deadline will state the 15th of January. However, your internal deadline at school or college will be earlier. It's likely to be somewhere around the November half term up to Christmas. Your internal deadline will differ depending on your institution because there's a few extra things to consider when we're putting this in. We ask you to write 47 lines, and I'll show you how best to do that, but it can take a good while to actually write this thing. It can take a few evenings, a few weeks. For some of you, you've probably been working on this for a few months. You get 47 lines to write about yourself. That's the personal statement. But you also have a reference, and this is where one of the tutors who are aligned with you in your application, they also get 47 lines to write about you and what you're like as a learner. The reference is incredibly important. The reference is quite often used when we are stuck between possibly two candidates with maybe only one space left on the course. You may both have similar grades, you both have a very good, strong statement, but the reference really gives us a professional and often objective review of what you are like as a learner. And that really does play a big part in those types of decision making. So we want to make sure your tutor has as much time as possible to be able to complete this. Your tutor is probably going to have to write anywhere between 30 to 50 references. So if they have to write 50 in one evening, it's not going to be as good as it could be. So the earlier you have that handed in, the more time you're giving them as well to complete that reference. But also when you look at the amount of UCAS forms that come into us on the deadline date, each year you're looking just north of 2 million application forms are submitted, and a large chunk of those do come in at the deadline date. It means our desk and workload is huge at that point. If you have it handed in earlier, we will read them as they come through. And it just means you might have that little bit extra time in front of the eyes of that admissions tutor who's going to make that decision, which is no bad thing at all. So you'll have this handed in, all done and dusted, your 5 options on there, your personal statement, your reference, all done by Christmas and sent off to UCAS. After that, the university will then come back to you. Each university might take longer than the other. They all have their own internal policies on how they go about offer making. So don't be worried if you hear back from 4, but one doesn't come back straight away. They might just take a little bit longer in their decision making, but you should hear back all within time for you to then make your final decision of which universities you want to go to in May. So it's normally around the first week of May. You'll then have to decide out of all 5. If all 5 come back and give you an offer, you then have to narrow it down to 2, a firm and an insurance choice. So the firm choice should be where you really want to go. It should be the top choice, is where you really want. It's that one university you've probably seen already and go, yeah, that's where I want to go. The insurance choice should be somewhere that you are just as happy to attend. Sometimes we do have issues with students who put down anywhere as an insurance, and on results day, suddenly they find they're not into their firm choice and instead they've been allocated to their insurance choice, and they can't apply through clearing or start looking at other offers until they've released themselves from their insurance choice. Sometimes that can take longer than they want, really. So you need to make sure you are aware that if you don't meet the requirements for your firm choice, you will be aligned to your insurance. So make sure it is somewhere you definitely want to go. So after that, then it comes down to results, all that hard work into the assessments for next year, and then fingers crossed it all works out on results day. So that's the time frame in which you're working at. So you can already see that the majority of the work we need from you for your UCAS application form, really, it's in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So that's why it's so important that you do the extra legwork now. As we're looking through your form, The three main things, as I said already, that we're going to be looking at. Personal statements is very important. Reference is something we look at when we're stuck between candidates as well. But the grades, again, very, very important. We want you to be aspirational. If there's a course that you love the look of that says you need 3 Bs and you might be a grade or so off, put it in. Have a look at your options. Realize that you can put a bit of extra work in. Be aspirational with your choices. Remember, you have 5 options that you can apply to. Pick a few of those options for those that around the grades that you are predicted from your tutor, because they have a good idea of what you're able to get through this. And then after that, you probably want to pick one that might be more of a lower grade area. It depends what you want to do. Just make sure not all 5 of your applications are grades above of what you can achieve. When I was going through A-levels, I was a straight C student. It's unlikely that I was going to apply for Oxford or Cambridge. Simply won't be in the running for it. But if I'm looking at places as I did, like Leeds Beckett and other universities that have that CB boundary, there's lots of courses that I could apply for. So what we want to hear from you, a lot of the advice that you'll see, either heard from your tutors or written down on guidance, it often says, tell us why you want to get onto this course. And whilst that's correct, a lot of students approach it in a slightly different way. A lot of students will write this and give almost an emotional plea of why they should be on the course. Quite often we hear people going, I really want to be a primary school teacher. I've wanted to be a teacher ever since I was 3 years old. I've always helped work in classrooms. And that is fantastic to hear. It's great to hear the motivation. However, the whole thing shouldn't just be an emotional plea going, please let me on your course. This really should be written almost similarly to a job interview or a job application form. If you approach this the same way you would a job application form, already you'll change the way that you want to approach this and the way you write and the way you structure your arguments. What we would love to do, what would give us all a lot more clarity, is if we could sit down with every single one of you and have a head of department interview you all to get a good understanding of who you are, what you're capable of, and what you want to get out of this. But we just don't have the time to be able to do that. So instead, we ask you to write this 47-line personal statement. But we still need you to approach it as if you just walked into that interview room, you've sat down with the head of department, and they've asked you this question: why do you want to study this course? And if you think about that question, if you think about it in that context, you will see your writing style was slightly changed to that simple question of why you want to be on the course. Why would we pick you? So already we're looking at ideas of developing better understandings of your skills, giving us examples of what you can do. And as we go on to the academic writing and the paragraphs of which I'll break down, it will become a lot clearer about how we make those even stronger. But generally, we do want to know you're enthusiastic, we want to know you're committed, and we want to know you're determined to finish this. The big worry we have is students might apply for courses where they don't have a full understanding of what the course entails, or the graduate labour markets. They have an idea of what job they want to do, but the course they picked may not align directly to that. It's important you know this course inside and out. So don't just apply to courses where you've read the course title. You need to read the modules listings. You need to understand the research done by that department. You need to understand the school within the university. You really need to know this course inside and out. It just means you're not going to end up applying for a course where the content is different. Just because we do a business management course doesn't mean you're going to get the same modules and the same content as another university down the road. So you need to make sure you're applying for the course you want to do, understanding that course, and talking about the skills you have that will help you do that. So when we're looking at the structure for this, really we're looking at 4 paragraphs. Within the 4 paragraphs, the introduction, one on academic abilities, extracurricular, and finally, the career aspirations of why you're doing this in the first place. Top tip, that introduction, don't touch it. Don't even try yet. Often people start with the introduction and it's so difficult to write. You can't get it right just starting with the introduction. Because again, you start with those questions of going, well, why do I want to do this? And you start writing that emotional plea. And that's why we end up with the same overused lines again and again. UCAS have them listed on their website. Ever since I was young, I've always had a passion for, and it does start to sound very samey. So top tip, trust me, leave this until the very end. We'll come back to it. The academic abilities. So for this area, this, depending on where you're applying to, if you're applying to more academic subjects or areas within like the Russell group, really the academic abilities should take up around 80% of this document. If you're applying for more vocational areas or again other courses that aren't quite as heavy on the academic skill base, you can bring that down to around 60, but really it should be no less than 2/3 of this personal statement. So the academic abilities is the main part of this whole document. When we ask you for your skills, again, some students start writing this by breaking it down by the subjects that they've studied at level 3. Understandable, because that's where you're coming from. But you're writing this to convince a tutor that you have the skills you need to do their course. So we need to flip this around. Instead, we need to start looking at the modules that you're going to be doing at university. So if you do want to do something within business management, you need to start looking at the modules that they do at higher education, which could be areas within human resources and organizational structures. It could be the finance aspects. It could be more law aspects. You need to break down all of the modules. And the best way I've found to do this, one Excel sheet, you look at all the modules in one row for each of the courses you might be applying for, and you just need to highlight all of the modules that have similar skill sets. That way, if all 5 of the courses you're applying for all have a corporate structures module, you know you need to have a few comments about your knowledge on corporate structures. It's simply trying to break it down to the key skills that all of the courses are going to be looking for. We normally teach you 6 modules per year over 3 years, and there's more and more modules in the 2nd and 3rd year as you start to specialize. You don't have to write about every single module. Don't worry about that. But at least start talking about your skills in the core modules. It means, again, we're going to have more confidence that you start to talk to us about the skills you're actually going to use. As you start to write this, again, you may end up with far more than 30 odd lines about this, but it's easier to write more at the very start of putting this statement together, and then we'll go through an editing process to look at the most salient, the most key points that you need to keep. If you're applying for a course which doesn't relate to the subject material that you're doing at the moment, that's when we need to start looking at more of your transferable skills. And that's very easy to do. So if you're applying for areas within possibly computing or anything that deals with maybe data or stats as well, even people within social sciences, you've done a lot of work within statistical analysis. It's just looking at those key skills and modules, as I say. So you take it away from the headline subject area and just look at those key skills, because you've done a lot of work in SPSS and data and qualitative or quantitative research methods, you can start applying that to different subject materials as well. So again, just break it down and have a good bit of confidence in what it is that you're doing. So go through as many modules as you can and structure it that way. The 3rd paragraph is your extracurricular. Again, most of the guidance you see says write about things you like to do outside of your studies. I'd caveat that with things that are relevant. Often people get to this point and they go, actually, I don't do much outside of my studies. And that's fine. If studies really are your whole life at the moment, and that's understandable, then probably talk a bit more about the extra studies you've done, maybe about voluntary work or extra projects work, or even EBQs that you've done that tie into your skills and the subject that you want to do. That's understandable. If you do have extracurricular things, please do throw them in. It's not a point at which you need to be coy and shy. If you have done excellent work within sports, music, if you've got hobbies, if you've run for Yorkshire. I chatted to one girl a few years ago who actually ran at a competitive level for Yorkshire and didn't think it was important enough to put into a statement. It's all important. And if you're sat again, I don't have any gold medals or I don't have any gradings on musical instruments, just look at what it is that you do. Maybe what it is that you do is actually you keep down 2 part-time jobs. You might care for someone at home. Perhaps you have actually overcome some difficult circumstances in the last 2 years and you're still coming up with amazing grades. We just want to know who you are. So, as I say, break down anything else you think might be very important about you, your journey, and your discovery of these courses and what you want to go on to do. The final paragraph, why are you doing this? Quite often, students will write this with the end goal in mind of getting into uni, like getting their foot in that door in the first point. That's not how we see it. We want to know why you're doing this course. We want to know what happens after the course. You're doing this course for a reason, and that reason is going to be either a career, a research project, it might be postgraduate, doctoral studies. We just want to know, first of all, that you've got something in mind, but also that you are picking the undergraduate course for the right reasons. It might be that you're taking psychology so that you can specialize further into NHS work, or you want to go into, again, organizational structures or work-based psychology, or you might want to work and specialize in the forensics areas, and you're going to use the additional modules and voluntary work that we give you to better get experience in that field. A lot of students do undergraduate courses to specialize later in areas of, as I say, psychology or law, or areas within teaching and teacher training. There's loads of different pathways you can go onto after your degree. So give us an idea that you understand what is available to you. Even if you don't know what the career is yet, again, talk to us about the area you find most interesting. It just gives us that bit more confidence that you know what this degree is going to offer you and what you'll be able to do in the future. And then as we go back, that introduction, once we've written these other 3 paragraphs, the academic breakdown, the extracurricular, the things that you like to do, and then the career aspirations, that introduction starts to look a little bit more simple. Because now, as I said, imagine you're walking into that interview and the head of department has said, why should we pick you? Already on that page, you have a career aspiration and you've got academic skills, which are going to enable you to start developing yourself during university to be able to do this later on down the line. And possibly we might have some more extracurricular interests in there that could, again, also link to what you want to do later down the line. And already we have a better argument about you as a learner, the skill sets that you're going to bring to us, and how you're going to succeed in the future. And all of a sudden, that introduction, which should be no more than 4 or 5 lines long, when we ask you that question, why should we pick you? You've already got that argument together. So that should help you no end with writing that intro. And after all that, all of that I've now asked you to write down and try and fit into this gives you an idea of how much space you actually have. So you have got 47 lines or 4,000 characters of space in which to write this, whichever one comes first, and it does include spacing, which puts some people off, and suddenly they think that they need to take out the paragraphs, take out the spacing, and fit as much information into that small space as we can. Please don't. If you can see yourself from this screen, if we get a big block of text without any formatting, without any structure or any paragraphing, it can be very difficult to read. So please remember, 4 paragraphs: introduction, academic, extracurricular, and then your career plan. Make sure you paragraph it off into 4 paragraphs, keep it succinct, and at this point you might find that all that extracurricular work that you found really passionate, maybe it could be the extra sports you've been doing for the last 15 years, as important it is to you, it may not be as important to your application for example, a film course. So you need to then start looking at each of your points and editing them and ordering them in the order of importance of what an academic tutor is going to be looking for. And as I say, we're looking for you to give us confidence that you have the skills, the enthusiasm, and the commitment to complete this course to a very good standard. A few top tips. On average, this can take around 7 drafts. It's not the kind of document that you're going to write in one evening and hand in. You need to give yourself time. And that's when I say that one of the best things that you can do when you are writing this whole thing is plan out enough time so that at least 1 free week between edits. So you might want to spend 2 weeks really getting all your ideas down, trying to piece this thing together, and then you need to put it in your top drawer or save it away in your drive, step away from it for a full week, then come back to it, and with a fresh mind, fresh set of eyes, you yourself will start to see things that can be improved, or spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. It really does help you process and you're thinking about this when you've got a clear head, not when you've been looking at the same document for 5 evenings on a row and you're starting to struggle. That said, if you are struggling, get in touch with us, either us at Leeds Beckett for the course you're applying for, or your tutors or your careers advisors, whoever's there, they are all there to help you through this process. So just get in touch. As I said, we are space limited here. But also, when you start to include this in your UCAS form, the UCAS form doesn't really give you the best formatting or checks for spelling or grammar. So make sure this is all done in word processing. Whichever program you're using, make sure it's all completely accurate before you copy and paste it into your form, and then just double check that formatting hasn't gone awry when you've copied it over. Speak to everyone you can. If you're sat there thinking, I need something new to put into the statement, could be friends, could be families, could be tutors, could be anyone who you spend time with, they can give you a better idea of other things you may have done that you've forgotten about. Generally, when it comes to work experience and things that we require of the course, we only want it within the last 2 years of you joining the course. But as I say, things like your part-time jobs, things that you may think aren't as important, are filled with examples and skills of things that we want to hear about from you, about teamwork, training, development. It's all the extra things that we can use as examples to talk about, again, those transferable skills. So try and find more examples by chatting to those around you. Don't just rely on spell checker, really do read it or have someone else read it to you. That can often be really, really good because, again, they're coming to it from a fresh perspective. And keep a copy. The reason we say keep a copy is twofold. First of all, if you do have an interview with us, chances are the interview panel will have read this just before they talk to you. So it gives you a good idea of their understanding of you. But also, you're going to be using this document for other applications, whether it's applying for a different course, a short course, a part-time course, a postgraduate, part-time job. Even when you graduate, when you're applying for full-time jobs, the process you're going to go through to write this is the same that everyone uses for all of those scenarios. Everyone has a document like this in their life. It will change, it will evolve, it will develop, as will you. So that's why I say, always keep a copy, because you'll always need it. And always go back and check with your tutor. I say your tutor is in this with you. They want to make sure you complete the best form that you possibly can. And it doesn't hurt to get in touch with us as well. And you can either get in touch with us in a few different ways. We have virtual open days coming up. They're all listed at the bottom. So on the 3rd of October, 31st of October, and 3rd of November. And they're on Saturdays running from 11 until 2. And you can register for those online. And also the QR code on that screen now is part of the subscription form. So if you follow that through to your QR code reader, you can sign up to the latest information on our news and events and any other support we have for you as you're applying to university. Hopefully you found that useful. You've got a few tidbits to take away and to improve. And I say, if you do want to get in touch with us, please do through the website, and we'll do what we can to help. Good luck. We'll see you later on.